Welcome back to the shop. Another day on the Mighty Max. Ended up going backwards a little bit to move forwards. Got the front mount figured out for the subframe. Got the mount for the rear dialed in. Fish plated the sides. There's still a little bit more support that's got to be done, but we got to get the coilover mounts figured out and set. But now that everything on the subframe side is set, we can start moving forward. So pulled all the tubes off, started prepping them. Now we're going to start setting the ride height, and then we're also going to, just to make things a little bit easier, we're going to remount the body mounts and the front core support just to hold like the headlights and everything and help hold the fenders. So that's kind of the game plan. Engine's out as well. Just makes it a little bit easier to get the subframe dialed in. So I'm going to start working on getting the coilover and ride height set and move forward from there. So once we get all the suspension set and the ride height set, we're gonna start working on the brakes, clutch, steering. You can see how far off that is. So that's gonna be interesting to figure out, but should be kind of fun. All right, so we're getting this mocked up. This plate kind of has some movement up and down all over the place. So what we're trying to do is get the angles of the coilover matched to what it was in the car. So I took a couple measurements, so we'll use a angle finder and we'll make sure that those are close or hopefully exact. And then we'll tack all this together and make it happy. So we pulled a bunch of measurements to make all the angles match and the heights match. Everything's matching right now, so we tacked up both sides. So now to test if the ride height's good, the way this is kind of designed, it can slide up and down this tube to kind of adjust the ride height. So hopefully we're close. So with everything mocked up, we put it on the ground. It fully turns one way and the other, doesn't hit anything. So in theory, this should work. We just need to know the ride height with the engine in it. But the cool part is about this build is everything will be Evo 10 parts. So if he needs to, he can put coilovers in it and adjust it to dial it all in front to rear. We dropped it down, set it on the ground with no engine in it. It was a little bit lower than we like. So we're gonna drop this whole tube down an inch to raise the truck up an inch and see what it looks like then. Looks like the 1 inch did what we want. Looks a lot better and should match the rear a lot more evenly. Everything can be adjusted with coilovers at some point, but liking that. The front tube work is all set for the coilovers and the front frame rails. So now I got to get the engine back in, make the mounts, and once that's all squared away, then I can build in the rest of the tube work to strengthen up the front end and keep it nice and strong. And then going to run the front panel over top of these tubes and then cut everything down and build it out how I want to. So it's coming together. It's technically a roller. We're going to pull the fenders back off, start making some of the tie-in pieces for the side tubes, and then start figuring out the one for the center, and then get the engine back in and start making all the mounts so we can make the crossbar here that ties into the firewall and finish it out. Chop the tubes down after everything was set right height wise. Made a little tie-in panel for the A-pillar. Normally I would tie that into a roll cage, but since this truck doesn't have a roll cage, made these panels to just bolt in to allow a little bit of movement rather than welding. And then I'm going to do another panel in the middle here and make that bolt in as well and be removable so you can work on the engine easily. So we cut some of the firewall out of the Evo. Just the easiest way to get everything lined up for the steering column and brakes and clutch. So this one was a mechanical clutch. The Evo is a hydraulic. So we're gonna pull this panel out. Also, this hole is way off for the steering column because it used to be a box up here. So pull this panel out. Give us a big hole, but that's what will allow us to shape in the new Evo panel and get everything dialed into where we want it. And I'm using where the brake was to locate the pedal assembly inside the truck so it feels right in the truck. Got it fitting pretty good. Steering column's lined up. Brake is where the old brake was. The gas pedal mounts on the front side. There'll be definitely some plate work that'll happen to fill up that gap where the gas pedal went. And then the clutch will go over here in this area. So with this mocked up flush, I still need a little bit of space to clear everything for the brake booster. It's hard to hold all that up to show you, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this scrap 3/8 plate I have and make a spacer that bolts up to the firewall and then to the brake booster. And that way I can mount, instead of mounting this with a big gap like that and making it all plated, I can mount it flush and it'll be a little easier. So with all this mocked up, everything lines up really nice, but that pedal ain't gonna work. It's gonna hit the tunnel, so we're gonna have to cut out a section of the tunnel and build that in too. So we made a quick spacer to space out the brake master a little bit just to clear this tube, and it still hits it a little tiny bit, so I'm gonna cut it out and run or cap it back in. That way we don't have to modify the booster or pull this out anymore because we're running into clearance issues with the coilover tower. So easiest way is just to cut that out, and then everything will get resupported out here anyways, so shouldn't affect strength. This bracket is for the Mighty Max. This is for the Evo. The Evo is about 1 inch skinnier. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this off and modify it to fit that. That way it'll all bolt up to the factory crossbar. And that way we don't have to get everything stripped out of the Evo on the crossbar to weld it in. We can just use that. And then brake pedal wise, where the bolt holes are, there's not much above them. But on the Evo, there's 3-4 inches above the bolt holes, so it's hitting everything. So we're gonna have to get creative with those. Built the fish plates to tie into the frame all the way up. Ties into the first tube that comes up for the main tube, and then also capped it in and did the backside. Now, steering column's hooked up. It turns. This is the Evo 10 steering column mounted up to the Mighty Max, and it turns. So that part's done. I had to cut the bracket off of the Mighty Max and then graft it onto the steering column to make it work, but that's definitely a step forward in the right direction. So the bushing, or whatever you want to call it, should go right back in there and bolt up. So that'll seal up that. Obviously got a lot of work to do to get this all in, but haven't figured out the pedal problem yet, so that's up next. All right, it took a lot of modification, but steering columns line up really nicely, kind of pretty much dead center in that hole. Brake works there. The pedal assembly also works. The gas pedal's installed and the clutch pedal assembly works. So now to plate all that in and make it look like it's supposed to be there, and make it look good. It's going to be a little bit of a challenge, but it should be worth it because everything should feel very good in the truck. Steering column is in. It looks like it fits with this dash really well. Using the Mighty Max mounts, where I was able to get it up nice and tight, and it looks like it's part of it. So kind of cool. All right, so we separated the cab from the chassis. Biggest reason is everything was so tight behind this coilover tower and this main tube that supports it that there's just gonna be no easy way to weld all this pedal assembly in. So we figured we might as well pull it, start getting it all set and weld it out, and then put the cab back down. With the cab separated from the frame, it was a lot easier to get all that figured out and welded. Doesn't look the greatest, but it doesn't look bad, and it will work. What the important part about it is it positioned the gas pedal, brake, and clutch all where we wanted, and then I welded it all in. Normally I would, you know, build a full custom firewall, but in this case, this is the easiest and quickest way to do it. I'm gonna support the top of this, weld it out with the TIG. Just a quick cap on it since we cut a lot of the support out. There's a few more little odds and ends to finish up, but the front end is on. Still gotta make some bumper bolt brackets. We don't know what bumper we're running yet, or don't have one, so I'm gonna leave the tube work for now, but I'll cap these up and make mounts for it so that the bumper can easily be mounted later. Underneath the skin. And then strut bars not complete, but there's just a few little tiny fab things left, but the motor's mounted, coilovers are mounted, turns, brake pedals in, clutch pedals in, so everything's in the truck. Fab work is mostly complete.